Okay, I think you guys you prefer shorter videos, so I'm going to make sure to keep this shorter. I will be sharing this PowerPoint with you, and I'll ask you to look at it. But we will go through the basic parts here of an abstract and introduction in this video. We'll look at informative abstracts and structured abstracts. Descriptive abstracts we won't go into. Descriptive abstracts are essentially abstracts that don't include all of the information. Abstract here, the purpose of your abstract is interesting your reader. This should be written for a non-specialist audience, a generalized audience. We should have keywords underneath the abstract. There is a word requirement on the abstract for APA style and IEEE. I believe it's around 150 to 250 words is the general requirement. Check out APA style for specific requirements there. And it's good to learn how to write one, right? Abstracts should fully summarize the entire paper. Okay, they need to be able to stand on their own in that way. Because of that, they have to be quite concise as well as detailed, right? So they're concise, but still somewhat comprehensive. Generally, there are 4 to 6 parts of an abstract that you need to include. Make sure you don't include abbreviations we don't understand or unfamiliar terms. We don't have citations in the abstract as well. No figures or tables, or any kind of conclusion not covered in the paper or any reference. Any references. So these are the 4 parts. Now, some places say these 4 parts, and let me show you. Here I have a table that you can use for that. You're also, though, welcome to use these 6 parts, which it's quite similar. The main difference from the abstract to the introduction is the introduction is going to expand on sort of everything, but mainly on the background part right here, and maybe other parts as needed. And so the introduction is just going to be an expanded version of the abstract. Okay. All right. So a structured abstract. What is a structured abstract? Let's look at an example here. So this right here would be an example of a structured abstract. This is our AMA sample at the bottom of our Moodle. You can access this. And this is an IMRaD report about IMRaD reports, interesting enough, written in an AMA style. And this is what a structured abstract is. Essentially, the difference between an informative abstract and a structured abstract is just subheadings. So if you find it difficult to write an abstract, you are welcome to use a structured abstract style. You can either use informative, which is no subheadings, or structured subheadings. Okay. All right. And if you want to start with structured, write it and then delete the subheadings later, you can. Either way works. This is a little sample you can look at later that will kind of show you the 6 different parts of the abstract there. Like I said, you're not wanting to use jargon. You're wanting to make it simple, no abbreviations. Oh, and there's the word length, 150 to 250 words. I knew it was in there. Verb tense is kind of true of the whole report. If it's still true, keep it in present tense. For actions that you've already completed, like the research that you conducted, that's going to be in past tense. Okay. Again, pretty simple. I'll let you guys look through the rest of this to check out some cool little examples and revisions if you want to check out those and see how they designed that. I honestly think that this signal phrases thing is one of the more helpful tools for abstracts, but also introduction. Okay, so what I described as far as the abstract, in similar ways, you're going to build the introduction. Let's look at sorry, I'm jumping around a lot here. I have a document here that I'll also share with you guys. This is essentially after you've completed your research. This is going to help you write your introduction. Okay, so you can answer these questions and then pull it all together for a nice introduction. And so you'll start with what's the best way to open it. Okay, so when you start your introduction, the most important thing that I need specific to our assignment is I need to know that this problem is in fact a problem. I know that many of you did some primary research to figure out more about the problem. We don't really need to mention that in the introduction, okay? In the introduction, we're mostly focused on secondary sources. In fact, we do need quite a few secondary sources in the introduction to situate this problem. Remember that any phrase that is not your own should be cited. So if you mention some kind of technical background detail and it's not common knowledge, you need to find where that is mentioned in a source somewhere and cite it. And this can also help you add extra citations to your paper. So yeah, so best way to open your intro, it's going to help you start there. And then this is kind of what I'm describing now, is this main issue of like, tell us about this problem. If I don't understand that this problem is in fact a problem, then there's no point in this entire report, right? And so that's why that's so important at the beginning of the introduction. If we look at our sample paper here, they label their introduction background, okay? And so this is about the IMRaD, and it says, globally, there is an increasing awareness of the importance of research for developing guidelines to direct social and economic interventions. Okay, so we don't have any kind of fluffy, in the 21st century or nowadays, right? We don't need any fluffy intro. Cut out all of the unnecessary fluffy first sentence intros. Start with the content, okay? Start directly with your problem. The first sentence is going to, in some way, sometimes it takes a few sentences to kind of explain the problem, so that's okay if needed. But very quickly, we want to dive into that problem and explain it. And they continue on, right? Research involves a critical analysis of each and every solution using a scientific method. Research is thus the foundation of evidence-based practices, right? Society expects universities to do this. This expectation has led to policy recommendations. An example of such recommendation is, Gonzalez, where she identifies these things. And according to this person, let's see, instills that students an appreciation for rigorous research, right? In Australia, so we're looking at worldwide issues here. In Australia, students pick life skills, time management so long as they dealt with authentic science and had good supervision. Here we go. In Africa, the demand for high quality research at the undergraduate level is yet to be met. Okay, I hope you hear something different there. Okay, now we've transitioned into our unknown, right? Has yet to be met. Okay, so we've provided the background information, and now we can start with the unknown. Now, the one that we just looked at wasn't our assignment, so they weren't doing the same problem-solving model that we are, but they still had some background information to help explain this concept, okay? And they continue on to provide other information, of course. And sometimes there's more than one problem, right? And here they provide quite a bit more detail, and then they provide quite a bit more detail on the gap as well here, okay? Let's look at another example. This one here. So this one, we kind of break it down into 3 different categories. Again, there's many ways to break down these things: 3 points, 6 points, 4 points. Here it's broken down into 3 sections: establishing the research territory, establishing the niche, okay, and occupying the niche. What that means is, providing background detail. Establishing the niche is the unknown, right, and stating what your research, or just mainly the unknown, I think, establishing the niche, okay? And then occupying the niche is what you're planning on doing in your research and so on, okay? So if we look at here, we're talking about electronic cigarettes, right? So they're introduced to the market, the battery products, blah, blah, blah. Again, if any of these sentences are not common knowledge, we need a cite at the end of that. Okay, so I'd actually say that this is wrong in that at the end of this sentence right here, especially, we would need a citation, okay? And so anytime you're not using common, for this assignment, or for this document, maybe it was okay because they were writing to a more advanced audience, right? We're writing for a general audience, so we want to make sure that we cite anything that's not our own knowledge there, okay? Notice here, the literature on e-cigarette attitudes thus far has predominantly focused on the harm perceptions and general accessibility, blah, 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 right? It's already starting to sound like an unknown sentence, right? Like, so far, the research has only done this. We're almost pointing toward the gap, right? And then they say in the next one, to our knowledge, few studies have been done to show comprehensive, examined adolescent-specific attitudes towards and knowledge about e-cigarettes, right? And whether such attitudes differ. So this kind of paragraph is all about the so what, the niche, right? The unknown, the gap in the research. For you guys, your gap in your research is that that maybe this hasn't been studied yet, okay, at all. Maybe this hasn't been studied in Kazakhstan. Maybe this hasn't been studied in Kazakhstan in 2023. Maybe this hasn't been studied from a certain perspective in Kazakhstan. So there's a million ways of kind of finding that gap, right? Or maybe it's been studied, but we need more information for our specific situation because of, whatever reasons. You can mention the constraints, Nazarbayev University, or whatever the constraints might be. And then they go into the actual research, right? What they did, what research they conducted, what they discovered, and the solutions, okay? Some introductions. I'm going to tell you all this now, and some of you guys aren't going to hear this, but some introductions stop at the experimental approach. They say, with this research, this is what we conducted, or what we did. And then you have to read more to find out more. For our class, we do need to have a sentence about the results and a sentence about the implications. The implication is just why it's important. Why does it matter? Okay. One sentence about the results is enough. One sentence about the experimental approach is enough. One sentence about the question, purpose, and discovery is enough. If you want to have two for some of these, that's okay. If you want to have two for unknown, that's okay. Background does need to be at least a paragraph, if not more than one paragraph, depending on your topic and how much you have to talk about it. Some problems do require more detail to explain, and some don't, okay? So make sure that you hit all 6 points for your introduction here. All right, let's see, what else do we got here? Let's look quickly here at the purpose of the introduction. We're wanting to interest the reader, much like the abstract. We're going to situate the problem and providing the background information. It's an extended version of the abstract, so you're providing basis for what you're doing. You want to organize it in this exact way, okay? So as far as organization goes, it's general to specific, or specific to more specific, okay? But you're going to want to follow those 6 points. Stylistics, when describing using the methods, use past tense. Okay, you conducted something, you did the research already. When stating a question or the purpose of the research, it can be active present tense, and otherwise you can use active voice, third person. All right, yeah, so I think that's pretty clear. We've all written introductions, so we kind of already have an understanding of this, I think, and it's not too much more complicated than that. As far as the content goes, though, make sure you hit these points. A few final bits of advice. Individual consultations will happen next week. Please sign up. If you're really, really behind on your IMRaD, I recommend that you do not sign up, because most likely you already know what you need to do. I would prefer not to meet with students who haven't done enough research to talk about your report, or maybe you skipped all the drafts and so you don't have really much to show me. In that case, we don't need to meet, you just need to do the work, okay? But I do enjoy meeting, and I hope that I can meet with a bunch of you next week for optional individual consultations. I do have an hour-long video. I've mentioned to you guys before. It's right here. It's a full IMRaD+R walkthrough. It's really long. You don't have to watch it. But if you want to see an example of an entire IMRaD report, and if you want me to basically dive through it like I would grade it, and you are willing to watch that, you could watch it at double speed. It'd be done in 30 minutes. I will send out a detailed list of requirements for the IMRaD next week, just to remind you. So, it would say introduction, and it would show all the different 6 points of the introduction, methods, what I expect, as well as maybe some information occasionally about length. For example, the analysis of the decision matrix section in the discussion should be probably 1 to 2 pages, okay? And so I'll mention stuff like that. Don't confuse, and the final point I have here, point 3, don't confuse the data analysis section of the methods with the analysis of the decision matrix section of the discussion. All right, so we have data analysis of methods, analysis of decision matrix in the discussion. The data analysis section is just about your data analysis, right? You have to explain your data analysis. How do you plan to analyze your data? Through the problem-solving model, right? So you explain it all there. So it's just the section to explain how you plan to do data analysis. Then in the analysis of the decision matrix section is actually where we're going to get the analysis. So we don't need informative stuff here. I don't need to know about how much you weighted everything and all of that. I do need to know what number a solution got for a certain criteria. Maybe it got a 9 out of 10, and then you'll explain why. But I don't need background informative stuff there, because that's where it goes in the data analysis section of the methods. Okay. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to meeting with you next week. Good luck on your introduction and abstract. We'll see you soon.